or first of all, let's open up the planning tactics window. And again, of course, thank you for your time today. What we've done in the past is we've looked at financial planning tactics, and those are tactics really which are just pure math. What is the optimum thing to do from a math point of view as regards, when we should take OAS and CPT and so on. Last week, we talked about personal planning tactics. And one of the things that I did was I said, let's move funding wants to this week because they're quite different from things like changing our career income or downsizing our house or reversing a mortgage or taking out a reverse mortgage. We refer to those as personal planning tactics because they really involve, clients in the decision-making process. Have you thought about downsizing a house? Would you be comfortable with a reverse mortgage? Funding wants are quite different in the sense that they're values-based trade-offs. So they definitely require clients' participation in the planning process. And so I'm just going to select the funding wants tactic. And you can see when I do that we have the funding wants window up here, or area up here in the upper right. And then notice that we have a completely different look when it comes to the funding wants tab. This actually shows us our different wants, cost of homes, lifetime cost of operating them, not buying them, but operating them. Other things like our lifetime cost of vacations, our lifetime cost of vehicles, our lifetime cost of entertainment, and so on. And also, you can see that the order of the tactics in the upper right is actually most important to least. So we all need to live somewhere. Making TFSA and registered pension plan contributions, RSPs, of course, are preparing for retirement, insurance, protection planning for the family, etc. And then things like education costs and other things lower on the list, like lessons, entertainment, and so on. So what we need to do is look at the income assets forecast and have an assessment. Are these people on track or not on track? And you can see that in this particular case, there's a financial shortfall. So assuming that they're doing what they can for TFSA and RSP contributions, and they're invested at a rate of return that, represents their comfort level. And we've talked about that in the past. We're down to the point where, well, maybe we need to reconsider some of the wants in life. So this is, values-based decisions. And one of the things that I want to emphasize is that so often planners just settle for general expenses. And mathematically, we could go in and say, well, to what degree might we have to reduce our overall spending, 10% or something like that. But it really begs a question, well, what are we going to do more practically? Is it vacations? Is it vehicles? Is it entertainment? So there's no real focus, and there's no opportunity in some generalized number to be able to actually incorporate values-based trade-offs. So what's more important to you? Well, I really like to take vacations. I need the rest, but I'm willing to maybe spend less on vehicles, or I didn't realize my entertainment cost, dining out, etc., was having such an impact on my financial circumstances. That's something that I'm happy to reconsider. So I'm very much a believer, as you know, that we need to have something that's got a little meat on the bones so that if there's a financial shortfall, then people can make values-based lifestyle trade-offs. So what I want to do is just walk through how all of this can be done quite practically. So I could go in, for example, select a category like vacations, and let me go back to funding wants. And you can see we have an overall shortfall, and you can see the lifetime cost of those vacations. What I also want to show you is that there's a slider on the bottom here, so we can see certain things, vehicle shortfall, it's not a complete donut, home shortfall, entertainment shortfall, vacations are fully funded, but we can go across and find out years when there are problems. 2045 is Bill's life expectancy year, so there's a little something about the estate in there. But when it comes to Sue, the survivor, we can start to see where the shortfalls are all later in life, which is the period when our income assets, of course, show that shortfall. So, for example, we could go in and click 2049 and see, what's the entertainment shortfall, or 2052, what's the vehicle shortfall, home shortfall, entertainment shortfall. So you can go to any year and see where a particular want, if you will, is underfunded. So what I want to do is just show you some of the things you can do. You can do things manually. So if we select vacations, what if we reconsidered our vacation expenses? I could select winter vacations, for example, click more details. You can see it's $10,000. I could bring that up, make some adjustment. Well, we'd be willing to cut back to 9,000. Click save, close that, and then if I click apply, then everything will update, and now I'll be able to see the difference in the plan. And if I look out using my benchmark, let's say is 2050, then the shortfall, which was 96,000, is now only 59,000. So I understand the relative impact of a specific change. Now I'm just going to reset this to 10,000 because we'll have a look at it again a little later in a different way. What I've also done is, so this is going in and looking at specific expenses, vacations, what we spend on vehicles, our entertainment costs. You can just go in and manually make changes and see the impact, giving clients the information necessary for them to start reconsidering what they spend on specific things. Once, something specific is itemized, then they can act on that. The next time they buy cars, they won't buy $50,000 vehicles, they'll buy $40,000 vehicles. Can't do that if it's just general spending that's being reduced. But I've created another solution, which I've called Funding Wants in Cottage. So it looks exactly the same at the moment. This is something I was just working with earlier, but if we go to Funding Wants, there are homes now exist, and we have that financial shortfall. But these people actually are going to be considering, should we buy a cottage, which is what I want to show you, because that's different from adjusting expenses. So I've created this solution so we can look at, the whole situation. What if we did that? And so what I'm going to do now, you can see the effect here, and you can see under Funding Wants, the home shortfall is 624,000. So I could go in and simply, and I want you to notice other expenses are 80,000, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to change it to, we're buying it in the future. So I'm going to go to the cottage, bring up more details, and change this from 2020 to 2027. Save that. And what we see when we apply that is that the home shortfall is $1.1 million, and the other expenses have increased to negative 472. So that's not really helping me understand the effect of the cottage in its entirety. What I want to do instead is I'm going to create a new category. So I can click Add, open the categories list, And then what I'm going to do is call this cottage, and I'm going to move the cottage from the homes category over to the cottage category. Now, there's no change in the output, but what this does, you can see now we have homes and cottage. What this does is it gives me the opportunity, rather than excluding the cottage, which just moves it from homes into other expenses, it gives me the ability with a new category to understand the effect of that purchase. So I can add it in, future purchase of the cottage, which shows then the shortfall. But then what I can do is I can just deselect that category, apply it, and now I can see if I don't buy the cottage, its own category, just continue with the home, and we can see funding wants, we just have the home expense, other expenses haven't changed. Now I have the ability to have a look at the output. If I've got the cottage, let me reselect it and click apply. Then I've got a massive shortfall, and a lot of what I want to have and do in life is just off the table. Or I don't buy the cottage and I look at other things, for my summer vacation and how much of a difference that makes. So with expenses, we can include them, exclude them, change how much we spend on them. But with assets that have a much bigger impact on the plan, buying a cottage, buying a rental property, anything we want to do, what we can then do is create their own separate categories using the add button, and then move them into that category. And then we can exclude the category or include the category to see the effect of doing a specific thing on the overall plan. And we could apply that, by the way, as well to vacations. We could apply it to special vacations, in retirement versus not special vacations. But the bigger impact, of course, is obviously going to be, whether we should buy a cottage or rental property or whatever it might be. The other thing that we have the ability to do, and so I'm going to exclude that cottage. We've decided it's just too much of an impact. So the other thing we can do is we can click reduce. Before I do that, let me just go down and remind you that the order of the categories in the list is most important to least important. So then I can go down to the bottom and look at entertainment, for instance. C, go to restaurants. The expense for that is $10,000. And also it's important to notice here that the entertainment budget is about $422,000. And if I look at income assets and set a benchmark, and I'm going to use 2050, that total income assets are $162,000. So I can go in now, and of course I could adjust what I spend on restaurants, or I could click reduce. And I want you to notice that when I click reduce, the order of the categories is reversed, so that most important is on the bottom and least important, things that are up for reconsideration, are on the top. So I'm going to select entertainment and say, well, what would happen if we cut back our restaurant costs by 10%? Click OK, apply that, and then we can see from funding wants that the 422 is down to 379. And if we go back to our 2050 benchmark, what was, I think it was 160 is now 214. So we can go through and look at different things and say, well, it's made a bit of a difference. It's not everything, but it's getting us closer. What would happen if we reconsidered our vacation expenses? So let's cut those back by 10%. So again, it's not taking something and saying it's entirely off the table. What we're doing is we're saying, well, if I give up a little here and a little bit there, and again, if we go back to 2050, we can see now we're up to 245, and the shortfall is getting, considerably less. So part of all of this then is being able to say a little here, a little there, and then know exactly what we should be doing. We now know what our vacation expense is. And again, I want to emphasize, if we're just doing general expenses, oh, I need to cut back, 10%, now I'm skated on side, doesn't give us the opportunity to talk in terms of values-based trade-offs. Maybe we're cutting down on an expense that's, or would have to cut down on an expense that's actually quite important to us. So by itemizing things a little bit more, we're able to make these values-based trade-offs. One last thing that I want to talk about is that there is this view that when we do plans for people, we've got to get everything on side. The plan is complete. We've worked out everything that needs to be done. And the underlying presumption is that at this moment in time, we have all knowledge that we will ever have in our entire lives. And I think that that's ridiculous. I believe in the power of incubation. Let me sleep on it. I might come up with something that could make a difference. As the client, I want to test that out. And I also believe in the power of synchronicity, if meaningful coincidences. But I believe in it because if I am aware of an issue, then I can identify when an opportunity comes up that will help me resolve my issue. If I'm not aware of my issues, I can't identify those opportunities. So I want to give you a simple example. At one point, I was considering taking the whole family to Europe for an extended vacation. Started to look at the costs, which were very overwhelming. And it was not 2 weeks later, I was talking to a neighbor and we were talking about their plans for the summer. And he said, well, actually, we're doing a house swap. We've, contacted this couple in Europe. They want to come to Canada. We've spent time kind of interviewing them. We're very happy with them and how responsible they'll be. So they're going to come and live here for a month, and we're going to go and live in their place and use that as a home base. The cost of which, when I looked at it, was considerably less and made that vacation actually quite doable. So the power of incubation and synchronicity simply says that given time, maybe we can figure out how to resolve any financial shortfall. But we're not allowing those things to happen if we try and create a complete answer today. So I'm of the view often that a plan doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, that we need to do certain things that will help us move in the right direction. And then given some time, maybe some things that will come up that will help us figure out how to resolve any remaining gap. Now, obviously, if the gap's gigantic, we need to be more proactive now because we could run out of time. But if it's close, then I believe in not having to have the perfect answer today. So I wanted to run through this whole idea of funding wants, both from the point of view of how should we approach changes, values-based trade-offs, and then also just looking at the features that will allow you to do that. Much for your time, and wish you a great weekend. Thank you.